All right, what's up, everybody? Amy, I think we're officially live. That's the first time I've used that new intro video, so I hope that looked
Yes.
as cool as what I
Fantastic.
as what I thought it was. Yeah, I just finished that like late last night, so if you noticed a typo or something in there, somebody let me know, please. All right, so everybody, thank you so much for joining us for our second live Q&A with the one and only Amy Santee. I am so freaking excited to have this here. We got some questions coming in already. Derek Siever, Derek joining from YouTube. Look at that, man. All right. Looking forward to it too, Derek. So I'm really excited to have Amy on today. I didn't do my What's Up UX fam thing, which is weird. Normally I do that, but I missed it, and now it feels weird, so I'm not going to do it. But if you're new here, welcome. I'm super stoked to have you. Today's AMA is brought to you by the UX Playbook. If you want to transform your career from fuzzy to focus, make sure to grab UX Playbook's Fast Track Bundle. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/playbook. Use the promo code BEYOND for nearly $25 off all those examples, videos, tips, handcrafted by my buddy Chris Wynn. And as always, thanks so much to Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Roddy, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin for all the support. And if you want to join those fine folks and help keep all this stuff independent, ad-free, you can become a patron for as little as $3 a month. That's less than $1 an episode. And if you do that, you'll get some sweet perks to your support. And if you think the show is worth sharing, then I would love it if you told some friends. And for more information on how you can support all the stuff we're doing here, the show, the AMA, and all that stuff, make sure to check out beyonduxdesign.com/support. And like I said, I'm so excited to have Amy Santee join me today. Amy wrote an article a couple months ago now, all about the UX job market. We had her on the show last week, 2 weeks ago, and now she's going to answer all of your questions. So thank you, everybody who sent in all those questions. If you want to leave some questions for Amy, go ahead, get them in the comments now on LinkedIn or on YouTube, wherever you are, and we will do our best to answer. We had a few come in, and actually, full disclosure before we start, I totally screwed up the form that was on the site. So I was telling everybody to submit questions. So I found out last week that the questions that were coming in, they didn't actually have questions attached to the email.
Oops.
So I replied to everybody who sent in questions that I didn't get their question. If that was you, some people did reply back, but if anybody's out there, just you did submit one of those questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments again, just in case, and we'll do our best to get those answered. So Amy is a career strategist and coach for UX professionals who want to design their careers with intention and bring their good to the world. She's partnered with hundreds of people to implement and practice of self-research, self-advocacy, and strategy so that they have the tools to navigate the professional world with courage and confidence. And prior to coaching, Amy built a career as a UX researcher for product development and strategy. She's a writer, she's a speaker, but you may know Amy from classics like The Tale of the Cursed Prototype and the What's Wrong with Hiring podcast. So, Amy, welcome to our second ever live AMA. Thanks for hanging out today. I am so excited to have you. How's it
What's
going?
up, UX fam? How's your mom and them?
How is your mom and them?
I got your line for you there.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, my mom and them, we're up here in Cincinnati freezing our ass off, and they're sweating their ass off down in New Orleans. It's a crazy, crazy world. All right, Amy. So we've got a bunch of questions that came in. We're going to go ahead and just get it started. But before we do that, do you want to give a quick summary of your article in, like, I don't know, 5 minutes or a minute or so before we
Five
get
minutes or
started?
a
And then
minute.
I got some questions. The abridged version, the ultra
Yeah.
abridged version of your article.
Yeah, the
Key
abridged
talking points.
version. Because it is kind of a long read. I mean, the graphs, there's a lot of graphs, so that makes it longer. But yeah, a couple of months ago, I thought, I'm going to sit down and try to collect all of the data I possibly can on what's going on with the UX job market. So any kind of quant trends, stuff other UX professionals have pulled from sites like Indeed, even qualitative trends that I've just noticed on LinkedIn or as part of conversations I've had with really anyone in UX or with current clients, because I'm pretty sure, unless you're living under a rock at this point, that everyone's aware of the fact that it is a really tough job market right now, and definitely in the US, but it seems to be the case globally speaking that there has also been, I don't know if it's like some kind of impact due to what's occurring in the US and kind of having a domino effect, but we're seeing this happen kind of globally within the UX job market. Fewer jobs and more people looking. I want to say, like, if you take a look at layoffs.fyi, that's another really great source of quantitative information, not on UX, but for tech sector layoffs over the past couple of years. We saw the first big spike in mid 2022. And then it went down a bit, and then it started spiking up again around Q4 2022. It was continuing to just go crazy in Q1 2023, and we saw a lot of ups and downs, but huge layoffs at hundreds, thousands of companies at this point, from the biggest names to small places that have closed shop, basically.
Yeah.
Um, we've all been trying to make sense of it from whatever data sources we can, but I think it is important to go, like, what can we call together to paint a picture, as accurate of a picture as we can, knowing that we don't know everything. There isn't a lot of uh, perfect data that we can work with out there about every single UX role. We don't know, for example numbers of contractors who have been laid off, right? Because like the UX layoffs.fyi doesn't track contract
Yeah.
roles, for example. There are other forms of job loss happening right now with, say, like return to office policies that are um, basically making people decide whether or not
Bad
they
fire kind of stuff. Yeah.
move, right? Yeah, back to where the headquarters is located, or quit their job. Otherwise, like that's sort of like a layoff in a way, right? You're being asked, but not really asked. You're being told to make a choice here. So there's lots of stuff happening, and yeah, things aren't really going very well. We're coming up on 2 years of when the layoffs started happening, and
God, 2 years already.
yeah,
Damn.
it'll be like 2 years in May or June, something like that. 2 years in Q2.
Jesus. Yeah.
So, all of that said, like again, I wanted to see what I could pull together to make some sense of it. And I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if we're out of the worst part of the layoffs. Sure, I hope so. Like, I certainly hope that we are not going to see tens and tens of thousands of people laid off in Q2 of this year, right? And the continuation of that. Just because the layoffs have stopped doesn't mean that all the jobs are going to come back, right? Like, how many jobs will come back?
Right.
What new jobs will come out? Like, I know teams are working in a more lean fashion now. Like, budgets are lower, so for hiring, right? So teams don't have the number of people that they need for the work is always increasing. So the one thing I will say, kind of like a bright light at the end of the tunnel in a way, I think, and Jeremy, I'd love to know, and really anyone who's watching, I'd love to know as
Yeah.
well from other
Leave
people, is
comments.
yeah, like there's something over the past, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks, and it's funny, like kind of right after I wrote this article, something there's something in the air. There is, like, I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. I see more people over the past month and a half posting about openings on their teams,
Right.
for UX roles specifically, hiring managers or people on that team, people posting that they've gotten new positions, right? And, I'm not like saving and tracking every single one of those, but it's noticeably different. Like, there's a noticeable uptick in that. And again, that's just looking at
Yeah.
LinkedIn, whatever the algorithm wants to show you,
I
right? It's
know.
hard
That's
to
the thing
say.
I'm.
Right, exactly. So it's like,
Yeah.
what is up with that? But I sense from that there is something changing, but I don't think it's going to be like, oh, we'll just go back to like the golden days of
Yeah.
2020, 2021. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, well, it's funny you mentioned that because I think we may have mentioned this before, but I feel like I have been seeing that too. And then the first, this is me, I don't know, maybe reading too much like dystopian sci-fi, but the first thing I thought was like, is that just what LinkedIn wants me to see? You know, are they trying
Hmm.
to keep the proletariat happy, and not, revolt or something? So I don't know, but it's interesting because I have seen a lot of those. I got a new job posts, but I've also heard from 3 or 4 people in the last 2 weeks alone that have lost their jobs that have been laid off,
Right.
recently, like
Right.
within the last 2 weeks. So I honestly, I have no idea. It's so hard to say. It's such a, like a micro. The thing is, it's like you look at it from like a macro level and a micro level the two things can be completely at odds depending on where you are,
Yeah.
right? And so,
There's a lot of,
um, yeah,
oh, my lights just came on magically.
yeah.
Some magical
Oh,
person
watch
just
out.
turned them on for me. I was lurking in the shadows a little bit there. Trying to harken back to the Halloween episode that we did, trying to capture
Mhm.
that vibe of
Yeah,
the tale of the cursed prototype. But yeah, there's so many factors to pay attention to. And it's frankly a lot of work. Like even when I put that article together, I was exhausted after that. I was also
oh,
kind of
yeah,
depressed. I'm like, damn.
mentally and physically. Yeah, I bet, right.
Yes, exactly. So
Mm,
I think it's important, yeah, to pay attention to what's going on. But yes, to remember, like, what are we seeing that's more anecdotal? What are we seeing that is, can we start to pick up on any trends? What are we hearing from people we know? Um, I'm pretty sure that not much has changed in terms of it taking more time than it used to land a job.
mhm,
So, back in the good old days, you could kind of just like find a new job in a couple of months. Even
right.
if you were coming out of school or maybe out of a boot camp with minimal experience, you had more of a chance back then. But, these days and for, over a good year now, it seems to be the case that it's taking 6 months, 9 months for people to find jobs. And these are perfectly qualified people who could literally go in and do any job. Like I
Yeah.
have no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's crazy because I've seen people getting jobs, but then I also somebody I follow on LinkedIn. She posted the other day about how it's been like 500 days that she's been looking for work.
Oh yeah, Kaylee,
And
I saw that
Kaylee, yeah,
post.
Kaylee, yeah, and she's so clever too. It's like she's so clever, she's so talented, and like somebody like that's having a hard time getting a job. I'm just like, God damn it, what the hell,
People are
you know?
trying lots of things. And I
Yeah,
think that Kaylee did something recently, well, not even recently, this was a while back
yeah, this was a
for
while,
her
yeah,
job search. She
hmm
made this like really cool visual sort
yeah,
of
exactly,
slide presentation thing for her LinkedIn profile, right? It's like, I'm Kaylee, here's what I can do, here's what I'm looking for, which contrasts with the more typical like text-based LinkedIn post, which is uh,
right,
great to do. Like anyone who hasn't announced to the world that they're looking for a job, please do that like ASAP Monday because people can't help you if they don't know that you're looking. And it's
mm,
it's not shameful to need a job, right? Like we got to get rid of that like societal crap of like no green banner and like I can't tell anyone I'm looking and I'm ashamed and all of that. Not that
hmm
those feelings aren't valid and they do come up for people, but yeah, how can we get creative to maybe stand out or use networking in different ways? I am seeing some interesting developments in that regard. I gotta say though, people shouldn't have to work this hard to get a job,
I
like,
was gonna say the same
you
thing.
know.
Yes. It's sad that when someone like Kaylee does that much and puts that much effort into it and is still having a hard time finding work, it makes you really question what the hell is going on right now.
Yes, yes.
Oh, all right. So that's the brief recap, the abridged version of Amy's article. Check it out in the show notes from our episode that we did. You can also just I think Google what's wrong with the job market, Amy Santee, and it'll come up. It'll be the first thing
Mhm.
that pops up.
There's a
So
version of my podcast too. Like if
oh
someone would
yes, and an
rather
audio
listen
version
to me read my
if you don't
essay,
like to read. Yeah, right on.
there's
I
that
thought it
too.
was great.
What is
All
wrong with
right, so we got
hiring.com.
there you go. So we got a bunch of questions that came in. I'm gonna just go through the list first. The order that I got them, that's the order. And the first one is from Vias Vias. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. There's currently 200 applications or more for UX research roles. Or just say any. He said, I assume they're researchers, but let's just say any UX role because that's happening all across the board. How long do you think we'll be facing these hiring challenges?
Mm.
That might be hard to
Good
predict.
question. Let me go find my crystal ball. Oh wait, it's broken. Sorry.
Oh shoot.
Um, yeah, it's so hard to say. Like we were just saying, we've been in this for like almost 2 years now, and I think at first people weren't really expecting it to continue to be so bad for so long. And I
hmm
think the downturn in the tech job market and therefore UX job market is definitely comparable to previous downturns in tech, tech business and tech downturns, although the business side seems to be doing pretty good, if you ask me. Anyway, going back to this question, I don't know. I don't have an answer. Again, I think that there's something in the air. There's something seem to be changing, like hiring seems to be picking up a bit, but how to look at that versus the trends that we've seen, we need more data. We just need more time. I would say too, though, regardless of what's going on, we have to work with the here and now, and everyone has a different runway or different timeline, different resources, right? Like if you have run out of money, you're going to need to make some different choices perhaps than you would 6 months ago when you still had some severance, right? Maybe you're like, I've always wanted to go back to school for this thing. I'm going to do this now. I'm going to take this opportunity when I can't find a position. Great. That could be something, right? So, like, I would say explore the possibilities for what you can be doing that may not actually be the job you're looking for if it's taking a while, right? Like, how can you use this time to your advantage to build some new skills, to perhaps find work in in UX, we've always talked about transferable skills into UX. Well, now it's time for the transferable skills of UX elsewhere. Where, what kinds of fields might you be interested in working in? So look at the here and now, look at your timeline, your resources, your priorities and goals. And we talked about that in the podcast, right? So, Jeremy, I know that, you were laid off and you're figuring out like, I'm going to work more on my, this
Yeah.
aspect of my program and my business and my book and launch this. And like, you're
Yeah.
trying new and different things.
I am. Yeah. It's funny because when I got laid off, I knew how bad it was going to be. And I even like prepped my wife, like, hey, maybe I'm going to have to go back and wait tables or bartend or something, just
No
to make
shame.
ends meet. There's no shame in that game. But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I'm like trying to get into voice acting and stuff too. Like
Heck yeah. No, you would be
I'm
so
like
good.
a shotgun, just see what sticks. But yeah, I mean, you just
Yeah.
never know. I mean,
And
diversifying your income's never a
I'll be
bad idea,
honest, I
regardless.
haven't I haven't really talked about this that much, but I think this is a good moment. My business has been greatly impacted by all of this. And I would bet money that there are very few coaches, boot camps, programs, trainings, all of these like things that are within the UX universe of services and things that people can spend money on. I guarantee you that very few of those have not been affected. So I would say like probably all of these people and businesses have been affected in some way, including myself. And so I've had to think differently about like my own business and what do I want to
Hmm.
continue doing, what's viable, what are people willing to pay money for or not right now.
Yeah.
People want to like kind of hold on to their money because there's so much uncertainty about the future. Um, and so I've thought more about myself, right? Like I want to stick with the coaching and being in the UX community, but I've started, talking to some folks about doing business development for their UX companies, and
Yeah.
that's, I love selling. I know UX, I know agency world, right? I know consulting. And is this something I would have done 2 years ago, like in the prime of my coaching practice when things were going great? Probably not. I just wanted to stick with
Hmm.
that. But now that I'm kind of in this a similar bucket to UX job seekers, I have to pause and go, okay, what can I do to bring in some money that I could also be good at and like apply the skills that I've developed in this other place and in a way that I don't need to go like get training or school, right? Like I think people
Right.
can look for those sorts of things.
That's really interesting too. Like we always talk about the transferable skills to UX, but there are a lot of transferable skills outside of UX. I don't think I ever realized
Yeah,
that until you just said that. That could be like a whole nother episode on its own.
let's do it.
It's
Yeah.
weird. It's weird though that like we're talking about like how to exit from UX, but it's one of those things though where like I think you just have to be prepared for whatever. It's like follow your passions, and this
Yeah.
is something I say all the time too. It's like call me what you want. Just pay me what I'm worth. Like if it's UX design, if it's product management, if it's like carpenter, I don't care. As long as I'm using my skills and I'm enjoying life and I'm getting paid what I'm worth, I don't necessarily care what my job is. But that's a really interesting perspective. I definitely want to explore that more. That's
Yeah.
like another episode coming up soon.
Can I say
Um,
one more thing about that,
Go
actually?
ahead. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The other thing I want to say is, eh, look, we have to face it that, if we're a tech worker, if we're a UX professional, designer, researcher, whatever, oftentimes for people, that's a real big part of our identity, like our sense of self.
Hmm.
And when that
Yeah.
comes crashing down, it's a huge sort of like jolting moment of like, oh, wait, I'm not a Googler anymore. Or
Hmm.
shit, am I still a UX designer? I think I am. I don't have the job or the paycheck anymore. Am I still this?
Hmm.
it's taking me a million years to find a job. Like, do I belong in this field anymore? Like, there's a lot of really tough questions and things that we're having to face right now. And so, if anyone finds themselves thinking about that, yes, you are still the thing that you have been doing, or maybe better yet, you're a person who still has skills in a particular area. There's just stuff going on right now that we can't really do anything about. And it's
Yeah.
also a good time to maybe think more about, like, who am I as a person? What is my
Yeah.
identity beyond work? And if I don't have this like fat paycheck coming in, does that make me like any less of a person? Like there's
Yeah.
some stuff around that I
Yeah,
think is
that's
worth
true.
exploring.
That's absolutely true. Yeah, I mean, I know this is sort of somewhat off topic, although the more I think about it, the more I think it's actually related tangentially, at least. But I just did an episode last week with Jason Ogle, and we talked
Mm,
about taking care of yourself and how if we really want to have empathy for users and stuff, like we have to take care of ourselves first. And I think
mhm.
with all the stress and with all like the layoffs and the mental health, obviously taking a huge hit here. I just keep thinking about Jason, what he said on the episode, which like, how do you fill someone else's cup if your cup is empty?
Yeah,
And, with all this stuff going on, the first thing I'm just thinking about is like, you have to take care of yourself and figure out what you can do to just get through this in one piece. Because if you stress yourself out and just apply and apply and apply and apply, I mean, at some point you're just going to be like, screw this, I am done, I can't, I'm went out completely. So I don't know,
yeah,
there's a lot of correlations there. I think it's just like
for
it's really
sure.
fascinating. But
For
all
sure.
right, cool. So I'm going to mention this one more time. We got some more questions for Amy. Leave your questions in the comments. If you're on YouTube, you're on LinkedIn, we should be able to see all that stuff in our little restream consoles. Pretty quick, pretty cool.
I'm curious,
So
actually, like I'm seeing you and me in our little
mhm.
portal here, but
Yeah,
I see a few folks watching on YouTube, or I don't know if it's refreshed. Like, how many people are watching this and where right now? I'm just curious.
I have no idea. I
Okay.
don't- it shows me YouTube. I have no idea what LinkedIn is, and I don't open LinkedIn while we do this because there's like it's a delay, and it throws me
Oh,
off when
okay.
I'm hearing
Guess we'll
us
just have to
talking
find out
30
later.
seconds ago. Yeah, we'll see in the analytics, but hundreds at least, without a
Fantastic.
doubt, at least hundreds.
Cool.
But yeah, can you see the chat? Like, do you have that little thing open? You
I
can see
can
the
see the
questions.
chat being pulled in from LinkedIn and YouTube. Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
right on. Cool. All right. So let's see. All right, we got some more questions coming up. Make sure to leave your questions in the comments there. I've got a list of questions that I'm going to ask. But yeah, if you've got some questions, make sure to ask them. So let's see. Next question. Let's see. This was a long one. It says, Amy, I love What's Wrong with Hiring podcast that you do with Laura. I earned a master's degree in UX back in 2016, but have not yet made a transition into the field for a number of life-related reasons. I would now like to transition from IT into UX. I've taken on some design related projects in a couple of nonprofit orgs where he volunteers. And his idea is to apply a design process to each of those projects and then showcase the process and results in his portfolio.
Mhm.
And his thinking is that it would prove that he can do the work and perhaps help him land a job if and when things recover. He wants to know, Dan, is he on the right track or is there a more effective way to go about this?
Ooh, I
Sounds like
mean,
to me,
this
but
this is a great question. I think it's like an evergreen question that's been asked since the dawn of time of UX. Like, how can I like gather relevant experiences and
mhm,
showcase that I can do this work? And Jeremy, I would love to hear your thoughts too, because it seems like this is really in your ballpark of the kind of folks that are directly in your audience of your
mhm,
book and your podcast and all of that stuff. I mean, yeah, if I can answer Dan's question and sort of apply this to anyone else who's listening, who's like, what should I be doing so I can get a job? The keyword is strategy for me. Like, that's
mm,
always the concept I come back to. And I go to my website, my podcast, anything. I'm constantly talking about like how to be strategic with your job search. And really, what that means is like a strategy. Like, what is a strategy? So, the way I define it is it's essentially like a plan of action towards your goals, but it's intentionally designed and everything is prioritized, all the different activities. And it tells you what to spend time on and it tells you what not to waste your time on and your energy
mm,
and like your capacity. Because this is, it's a full time job essentially to do this. And for everyone, their strategy will look different. Different activities, different ways of spending that time and energy. Your priorities and goals are different. Your core values that underpin your decisions, right? You have different resources and family situations and all of that. So everyone's strategy looks different. And for some folks like Dan, it's like, let me work on different projects, gather things for my portfolio. Yes, of course, you want to be able to showcase that you can do the type of work that you're applying to. But the question is, how much of your time and energy do you want to spend on that versus other things? And
Right.
so, sure, that sounds like a totally great thing to incorporate into your approach. But what's the networking component look like? What does the and I don't know if events, I don't know if I consider them networking in the same way, but I think like attending live events can help with networking in some ways. Also just for learning and staying up to date on what's going on. Hanging out on LinkedIn, right? Like, are you making the
Yeah.
best use of the people you're following and curating that and getting rid of noise and knowing when you've reached a limit of like, okay, this is enough LinkedIn for me today, right? So the point I'm trying to get to here is whether or not it's Dan or Meredith or Rachel or Michael or anyone else who I see in the chat here trying to figure out like a job search strategy. Look at all the possible things you can be doing, but know the ones that make sense for you specifically. Look, what are your gaps? What are the things that you've kind of checked off? Don't worry about like your case study presentation for interviews, which comes on down the road, until you've got your resume in place, until you start getting callbacks for your applications, right? Like think of the order of operations if we go back to math class
Right.
or algebra,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
there's a certain order of operations that makes sense for us to follow. So yes, Dan's ideas here all sound great on face value, but I put it back to everyone to go, what strategically makes sense for me and how do I get intentional about it so I'm like maximizing the ROI of my job
Right.
search, basically.
Yeah, one of the things I was gonna say for Dan is like taking this is all well and good, but it depends on the type of work they're asking you to do. So
Mm,
if you're trying to go and be a UX designer and they're asking you to design a website, having a bunch of that in your portfolio probably isn't going to be as impactful as some other type of made up project that is more software related. So I think it all depends on what they're asking to do. So I don't know. I think it all depends. I think that's the right approach, but I think, like you said, it has to play into your strategy of what job you want, what industry you want. Because if, like, for instance, if you're working with nonprofits and you're trying to go get a job at Apple, it probably isn't going to be that effective. But if you're trying to go into the nonprofit sector and work with other nonprofits, then maybe that is a good thing for you to be doing. So I think like the answer is like it depends. We're going to
Exactly.
say
The
it
answer
depends,
is it
but
depends.
yeah,
And it's, each person has their own situation. But you make a really good point there. And if we think about like the best businesses, the best um, products, right? Like if we think about all the stuff we work on and where we work as UXers, we know that the best ones have a really good strategy, like the most successful ones. They're not just like trying to appeal to every possible customer out in the world. They're not just like,
mhm,
improving as they go along. Like they're thinking about things. They're making choices
yeah,
as to what to ship. They're making choices about marketing. They're making choices about resourcing, right? Like, and so I think the same idea here is applicable, wherein you want to set up your strategy like that. And to what you were saying about niching down, you were sort of touching on that a bit. If there are ways to niche down and say like, okay, I'm a UX researcher. I have had a couple of jobs at this point in healthcare organizations. It could actually be to your benefit to, if you're fine with it, to stick within healthcare, to really emphasize that experience, to like show up in your materials as a health UX researcher, something like that, to like position yourself in that way. And it might seem counterintuitive because it's like, well, then I'm like getting rid of other possible jobs I can apply for. well, maybe it
Mhm.
actually could work because you're standing out so well to the people who work in the healthcare sector, that they want to speak with you, versus folks who maybe don't, emphasize that type of experience. So that's another way to think about strategy is like when
Mhm.
you niche down and you have like a a, a smaller scope, if you will, or like a smaller target zone that you're interested in, it can actually be to your benefit.
Yeah. Now you mentioned LinkedIn a second ago, and I want
Mhm.
to tie this into like the strategy piece. And I just saw Jason made a comment on YouTube about how going on LinkedIn has become unbearable. And I think the thing that I would say is like with regards to LinkedIn is it's got to be part of your strategy, right? Like going and doom scrolling on LinkedIn and just endlessly scrolling and blah blah blah, like that would drive me crazy. So it's like be very targeted, like who you're trying to follow and why. Like, why are you trying to follow those people? What is your outcome that you're trying to achieve? How can networking with them improve that outcome for you? Or hit that outcome for you, right? So it isn't about doom scrolling. It's I've actually saw somebody the other day said like they go on with like for 30 minutes at a time. They set a timer because I think like it's just you start scrolling and you're like, oh god, and you just lose all track of time and you forget why you were even there to begin with.
Mhm.
So I think like LinkedIn can be very useful, but it can also be very deflating, like to Jason's point. So I think for me, it's just like have that be part of your strategy, and that's part of your networking, and be very clear about who you're following, why you're following them, how you're commenting, how you're interacting with them, and ultimately like what's your end goal. And are you trying to get a meeting with them? Are you trying to get a job with them? Are you trying to just get a coffee chat? Whatever it is, and I think that's something really important when I'm thinking about LinkedIn. But
If I
I don't
saw
know.
someone's job search strategy and just said LinkedIn as an activity, I'd be like, okay, hang on.
Right, what does that mean? Right.
What are you
Yeah.
going to do on LinkedIn and how
Yeah.
much, right? And so it's like, all right, I'm going to network specifically with content designers who work in AI.
Mhm.
That's it,
Yeah.
and that's
That's it,
okay.
right.
You're targeted, you're meeting those people, you just wanna get to know them, right? You might find them, by searching, maybe you're not even interacting with your feed as much, right? You're finding those folks, reaching out, um, or you're, like, turning on the, notification for specific people, so you make sure that you always see certain people's posts. So there are ways
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
curate what you see,
Curate,
but
yeah.
also, yeah, just to be more intentional with like the actual activities of what you're doing and again, staying targeted.
Yeah. Yeah, and avoid the doom scrolling. It's just
Avoid the
so
doom
easy to
scroll.
do. I mean,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a social network, and it is deploying the same types of manipulative patterns to get you to use the tool more than you probably should be, so that they can sell you ads and sell ads and things like that to you. So,
And then sell your
like,
data to other
yeah,
companies.
exactly. So I mean, but it is a great tool. But at the end of the day, it is a social network. Be very aware of that. So anyway, all right. Let's see. We got another really great question. This one comes from Cecilia. Is UX going the way of the rest of the creative industry by moving from staff positions to contract roles, or are contract roles just as sparse?
Mm.
I've seen a
Um,
lot of contract roles recently.
I mean, yeah, that's a good question. I can't say like, yes, ultimately it is going in any particular direction. Like, gosh, there's so much up in the air right now, with all of this and like technology developments and AI and like who knows what's going to happen like next year and 5 years. But I would say right now, yes, there are far fewer jobs that are like full time staff roles with benefits and kind of traditional sort of
Hmm.
9 to 5 type job. A lot of contract. Remember, we talked about contractors. Like so many contractor roles have been cut, but we don't ever hear about those or we don't see data on it because it's not collected and shared by companies. And
Yeah,
so
it's just
I
a
don't.
line item in the budget.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Yeah.
but those are I personally don't see those jobs as different in terms of the, day to day and your contributions, right? You just get paid differently and, you don't have as many benefits or any benefits, right? Like, so I see them equally as like a human and a job, right?
Hmm.
Between contract and full time. So yes, I think there are fewer of both that a lot of both of those categories got cut. But I also do sense that there have that because teams and companies still need work to be done, that they have been increasing contractor roles instead of opening up full-time
Mhm.
roles. Like that's the sense
Yeah.
I've gotten just from paying attention the past, couple years, to what I see on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
clients of mine who are applying for jobs and are applying for a lot of contract roles because they can't seem to come across anything, and the compensation for those being drastically lower than full-time positions, and just what they should be based on the value that they contribute.
Yeah, and it's interesting too when you think about it from like an economics perspective, because from the business's side, it's financially beneficial to not have a full-time employee and hire a contractor, right? One, I can let go. I can get rid of them anytime I want. I can staff up and staff down relatively easily without all the HR getting in the way. I don't have to pay the payroll tax. I don't have to pay the Social Security tax, at least in the United States, right? So that's something I can offload to the employee to pay 100% of them on their own. And so I can staff up. And it's funny because when we think about what you said about the reasons for a lot of these layoffs, even though like we're getting laid off, but the stock is still going up because they laid
Mm,
all these. You talked about this in our episode. They laid all these people off, and it increased their stock price because their operation costs went down.
mhm.
And so there's a direct correlation there, I think, between like we still got to get the work done. Let's hire a bunch of contractors
Yeah.
for 6 months, and we don't have to have the long term HR burden of like dealing with them.
Or they
So
reprioritize, like, okay, we've gotten rid of 20,000 people. Okay, great. Now, like, which teams actually do need some workers? Okay,
mhm.
then
Yeah,
like let's give them a bit of money to hire some contractors. Then, yeah, contractor rates have just, I think, been really bad for at least the past 10 years. I've done contracting and consulting, freelancing, and all of that stuff. So that's one real bad downside is the rates being offered even for like mid or senior roles are just I can't even find a word to describe
yeah,
how bad they are. It's just awful.
shitty.
Um, they're yeah,
That's the word.
shameful,
Shitty.
shitty, just like yeah, it's just
Bad.
wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All right, let's see. All right, so we've got one more question that was submitted earlier. Then we'll get into some of these questions from LinkedIn and YouTube here. But this one comes from Kristen. So this one's a little bit long. I've been getting severely burned out working 18 plus hour days due to everybody else being laid off and the workload falling on me, which is shitty in and of itself. I have no time to prep my portfolio and interview elsewhere without dropping parts of my job that they will absolutely notice when I stop delivering. I'm well versed in self project management and work life separation, just the current situation that's exceeding what's within my own control. So, this begs the question in this market, is it better to quit in order to apply elsewhere or to interview while working at the risk of getting fired because it requires sacrificing work? Which of these two worst case scenarios will be worse when it comes to reference checks and finding a new job? That's a hard
Um,
question. I don't know.
that's a hard situation to be in. I know a lot of people are in situations where it's like, if I stay here, then I'm screwed. If I leave, then I might also be screwed, like leave without another job, or if this or that, right? And the negative outcomes are always put on us as workers rather than on the organizations that kind of are not loyal to us whatsoever and don't actually care about us. The first thing I'll say is the person who submitted this is in an abusive relationship. And I'm not like exaggerating here.
Yeah.
Like, this is abusive because as a worker, you're there to do a job. You've been doing this job for however long.
Right. Probably
And
signed a
if
contract that said you would do certain things in certain time, right?
I,
Usually, like at least
contracts
40
say,
hours.
yeah, it's like
Well, that's true. I guess it
the
depends.
contract
Who
might
who
say
reads the
one thing.
contract?
The contract might also be really
Yeah,
vague, and that's
that's
actually
true.
a huge problem with full-time work is like it can be vague. Like it could say maybe you don't doesn't say how many hours you should work or like whatever, right? So
Yeah.
um but yeah, so basically you're taking on the burden of a company making a decision to fire or lay off other people, and it basically you were told it was your responsibility moving forward, to do these things that are essentially burning you out and really bad for your health, your mental health, your physical health. your holistic well-being, because it's preventing you from probably spending time like with friends and family. Like maybe you're sitting on the TV every night watching stuff because you don't have any energy left. Like I can only imagine the experiences of people in this kind of situation, partially because I have been there in certain times myself, and I know what that's like. And probably everyone listening to this, and so many of us in tech and UX have gone through this, because that's um, the culture of abuse of the system that we work in between employers and workers. Employers having the upper hand. And I say all that just to like wake people up a little bit, to go like, this is a systemic issue that so many people face, and it's wrong. Um, uh, we do have some choices to make, though, right? And I would say, is if your priorities like your health and well-being, mental health, that sort of thing, and you can't really like focus on that as much as you want to, or it's not where it needs to be, then yeah, there needs to be a choice made, even if it means that you don't have income for a little bit. You might decide that that is a better option for you than sticking inside a company that like
Yeah.
just makes you, that overworks you and burns you out. um, so that's one part of it. The other part of this question is um, around the topic of like, well, if I do this, then it might come back to bite me in this way. If I do this other thing, it might look bad in this way. And if there's anything that is going to change any of this for individuals and for the community and just workers in general, is that we start to um, uh, limit or push back on abuses when they're happening to us, and to kind of take the reins and go, you know what, no, I'm not going to let this thing happen. And so making choices that like put ourselves first, regardless of a potential future what if scenario of like, well, I left these 3 jobs in less than 2 years each. I'm in this one. If I leave it again, I'm going to look bad. If you're leaving it because you're being abused, then that's what the important thing is. Um, if there's any silver lining coming out of all of this stuff right now, it's that there these like taboos are kind of being washed away in a bit.
Yeah.
The taboo of not having a job for a really long time through no fault of your own, that's becoming so like commonplace for people due to the layoffs. This taboo of like putting it out in public that you need a job, and people wondering like, well, why don't you have a job? What's wrong with you? That kind of stuff is going away. And don't get me wrong, there's still people with really crappy biases out there, and that's always going to be part of humanity, I suppose. But I would say, don't worry as much about the like, how will this look later, and put yourself first and know what your priorities right now are. And once you get to that point later, you will figure out a story to tell about your experience, whether it's transparent or not. You got to put yourself first, at every point in the process. The important thing is to do something about the current situation.
Yeah, and I think like to what you said earlier too about finding those transferable skills that might apply to other things. I might,
Mhm.
well, one, I mean, I right now I might be very weary of quitting a job, knowing that I might not have a job for a while. So if I am going to quit, I need to find income stream. And you mentioned runway, so that's something that would play into my calculus there. But I wouldn't be opposed to doing something else. If I was working 18-hour days, probably on salary, probably not getting paid overtime, I'm sure. How much am I making per hour there, right? So like I would look at that and see like, can I wait tables? Can I do something else that is, low? Well, I was going to say low stress. Waiting tables isn't low stress. It's low stress when you
It's a
leave. It's
different
high
kind of
stress in the
stress.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's high stress in the moment, but once you're done, you're done. You don't take it home with you usually. Usually, I guess.
One other thing I'll say,
But
and I don't know if this person has done this, but could you say to your boss like, I can't do that anymore.
yeah,
Or
right.
like, being just straightforward about it. And if there's fear around that, like, oh my God, I might get fired, or oh my God, I might get yelled at. Again, that's another sign that the place
Hmm.
you're in is just in every direction not good for you. So I would say,
Yeah.
if someone says, hey, can you take on this new project? Sure, I'm happy to take on that project, but I'm gonna have to deprioritize this
Hmm.
other one. I just don't have enough time. Or you
Yeah.
know what? Yes, I can take that on. Is it possible to get a contractor to help with this other thing? And you know what? It's gonna feel awkward if you haven't done that a lot. but you might as well give it a shot and see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah, just reading the 18 hours, if that's
Mm,
accurate, which I have no reason to believe they're lying,
yeah.
that seemed, like you said, very abusive. So,
Yeah.
anyway, I feel sorry for you. Of course, hopefully that changes soon. All right, so let's see. Lightning round. Maybe we could do a lightning round. We've got about 15
Okay.
minutes left. I've
Sure.
got some silly little this or that questions that I wanted to ask you, but that's as a tick of filler if no one asks questions. But it looks like we got a lot of people asking questions, so maybe the this or that questions will wait. But let's see. All right, we've got Michael from LinkedIn, Michał, my buddy Michał. He asked something. I think we may have already touched on this, so maybe we could just briefly get out of the way. There's been talk about supposed hiring boom in the horizon as early as summer. Are there any indicators this could happen this year? We talked a little bit about that. Don't have a crystal ball, but anything to
I have
add?
no idea. I haven't heard anything like that before. And you know what? It doesn't mean that it's not true if I haven't heard it. I would say if you hear something like that, look at who's saying it. Where do they work? What kind of access to information do they know? Are
Yeah,
they citing historical trends and like are those relevant to the situation? Is there just one source saying this or multiple things? Is it a talking point that the I'll be honest, corporate owned media could be repeating this or
yeah,
any other talking point that will try to maybe convince us to think a certain way about any of this stuff, right? So who is
yeah.
saying it? What's their agenda? Like who are they? That's what's more important here is to really be critical of any information. Again, a hiring boom in the summer, like that sounds great, cool, but I'm skeptical. I'll be honest.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Listen is a good one, interesting one from Rachel on YouTube. How do you make the mental switch of doing UX work in your job, but then talking about your work during an interview?
Mm, the mental switch. Jeremy, I don't know how you would interpret this. Do you think this is around like how do I uh, talk about it to external people who aren't involved in the work, or what do you
That's
how
what
do you
I
interpret
gathered. Yeah,
this?
like so I guess like, because you get in the weeds when you're doing the work, but then when you're talking
Yeah.
about an interview, you've got to be more high level. And I think there's, I think I run in this trap a lot when I'm explaining my work in an interview. I'm excited about all this stuff. And I speak as if they know what I'm talking about, but they have no context. They don't understand the problem, the larger, ecosystem and all that stuff.
hmm
Um, I think that's what this is getting at. I don't know, Rachel, if you want to, you could always reply here, I guess, and tell us if we're wrong. But I think that's what
Yeah,
she's
I am curious. It could I mean, part of the mental gymnastics is like, God, I just want to not think and talk about UX for like 5 seconds of my day, please. Thank you. That would be
yeah.
great. Like maybe that's what it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think you hit the nail on the head. Context, right? Give people the context they need and just enough and think about your audience and is uh XYZ piece of information relevant to them and what they need to know about you in order to make a decision about hiring you. That's the gauge I would use to decide whether or not to include something and applicable to any interaction. Like if you think of a journey map of a job search and the touch points with your recruiters and hiring managers, your resume, your portfolio, interviews, whatever, that's always kind of the threshold I would look at is who's my audience? What job do they need to do? What question do they need to answer? Like, what's their goal? What do they need from me right now? And what can I give to them to like make that as quick and simple as possible? It's like UXing it basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, UXing your job search. I mean, UXing your job hunt in general,
Yeah.
and that even goes all the way through, like, understanding what the people that are interviewing you care about. What is that job specific? Like, why are they hiring for that job? What is the opening? Why is the opening available? What specific need do they have? And speaking to that without, going and just like scattershot, like I'll say whatever and hope one of these things sticks. So anyway.
One classic example, and I won't go into it too much, but a classic example that I see and I have done earlier on in my UX research career is presenting case studies in research job interviews as though you were presenting your research findings to stakeholders inside the company.
Yeah.
Sample size and the details of the methodology and like all the activities, that shit doesn't matter in your case study presentation. You can like touch on the things that you did, but going into like so much detail about your research findings, not relevant, right? So I think that's a real good example of how can you shift from how you talk about your work with that audience to like how do you present it and what's most relevant to the people who are interviewing you.
That is a really excellent point. Yeah, remember you're not speaking to the same people that, and they generally have very little context, and you generally have very little time with them too. And the
Hmm.
more time you take, the less time you get to ask all your important questions. All
Exactly.
right, so this is a question from Kaylee. Kaylee's here. She
Hey,
said,
Kaylee.
"Hi, yeah." So this question is a good one. How do we brand ourselves on LinkedIn to show hiring managers that we're qualified and open to work in a different type of position? So this, I assume, if you're kind of shifting from one position to another.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, Kaylee is like the queen of
I
like
was gonna say she's doing a good
LinkedIn
job.
branding, like standing out amongst the masses. So I don't know. Kaylee will probably come up with some really good ideas for this. Um, you know, we talked earlier about niching and being strategic, and I think it's the same thing for our jobs where if we present a clear, cohesive, straightforward, understandable story about ourselves professionally on LinkedIn, on our website, resume, whatever, um, that's going to help people immediately know like can I help them and can I do this job and am I the right fit potentially and all of that stuff. But if I'm presenting myself as kind of like a combination of a lot of things, or if I'm like I'm a UX designer slash UX researcher slash information architect slash content strategist slash like a sideshow clown, what job do I really want to be doing? And like, who should
Mhm.
hire me? And like, I can do all these things. And maybe I belong at like a startup or something, right? But you got to make that clear. Often what I see is people saying like, well, I could do all these things and even stuff outside
Right.
of UX, but that does not help the person trying to make a decision know
Yeah.
that like this is really your strong suit. And here's like, like if I can see someone really clearly communicating that, even if they can
Yeah.
do a lot of things, that's what's important is to just kind of show up as, a single sort of professional identity, no matter how complicated that is. Otherwise, you can kind of feel like you're all over the place and people just might be confused as to what you do and what you're best at, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think biases play a large part here too, because when that
Mm,
person looking at your resume or profile, whatever it is, sees that you can do 80 things, they're going to be like, well, they could probably do them, but can they do them well? And the
right.
bias is going to be they can't, right? They're going to think, oh, they can't do it, obviously, and it doesn't matter how well you can do any of that stuff.
Hmm.
I think that's something to think about too. It's like, how are you presenting yourself and understanding what those people on the other side, how they're perceiving you, put yourself in their shoes if you can. But yeah, I
Right.
think like to your point, like finding the top three things that you really want to do and promoting that, not to say you can't do them, but just like don't necessarily put them all in your title on LinkedIn, or something like that. So
Yeah, and if you're
yeah.
like, let's say you're again a UX researcher or maybe a content strategist or writer, those sorts of skills are really applicable in lots of places, not just product design, not just UX. You can be doing healthcare research, you can be
Hmm.
doing writing and content for like any and all kinds of businesses, right? So there is a way of maybe not saying like design researcher, UX researcher. It could be like qualitative researcher or mixed methods researcher with experience in XYZ, something like that. So you present yourself a little bit more broadly. Again, one caveat here is that the more distinct of roles that you're applying to, like UX research, content, blah, 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 right? It also means that you're going to have like three different resumes potentially, or like hybrid versions of
Yeah.
your resumes, and you can't have three LinkedIn profiles. Like there are things
Right.
that you just can only have one of, and so that's another challenge that this presents.
Yeah. And if LinkedIn were to do that, they would put that behind their $70 a month LinkedIn premium paywall. So
Exactly.
good luck paying for that if you don't have a job. All right. Amy. All right. So we've got about 5 minutes left. We've got one more question that just popped through on YouTube. Where did it go? I just saw it a second ago. Where'd it go? There it is. All right. From Nicole. I have a specific field that I'm interested in, but how can I compete or stand out from the crowd when others have years of experience in a field where I do not? We don't
Hmm.
have too much time left, so I don't know how easy that
Um,
is to answer in 5 minutes.
maybe Nicole's answered their own question, kind of, right? Like, can you? What level are you applying at? right? Like, are
Hmm.
you at a very early career level? Are you, like, and are these other folks at a senior level? They're likely not going to be applying for early career level jobs. Like, they shouldn't have to, but probably won't be, right? So, like, I would think very specifically about the roles and levels, and identifying the experience gaps and looking for ways to fill it, whether it's internships, training. Legit good training does exist out there, but just make sure you vet those things. Yeah, so, like, there are ways of gaining experience if you find that's the case, but yeah, I would say pay attention to that sort of thing.
Yeah. And also you asked a really good question, like what is the level? Like if you're transitioning from another field completely, like how are you competing with seniors and people who've been doing it
Right,
for
you're
years,
not
right? Like you
really.
probably
Yeah.
shouldn't be. Yeah. So 3 to 5 years experience. So in that case, like Nicole just
Mm.
posted 3 to 5 years experience. So in that case, if you've got 3 to 5 years of experience, are you shifting to a completely new field with zero experience? You just have three in an adjacent field. In that case, you're competing with people who have 3 to 5 years of experience. And my question would be like, should you expect to be at that level, or do you end up with a lower role, maybe a lower rate? It's like it's hard to. I mean, everybody's different, and I don't know, Nicole. I don't know your exact situation. I think it's how you present yourself. It's how you network. It's how you get to know people. How you message. How you sell yourself in that way. I wouldn't oversell yourself, because if you get a job when you aren't actually qualified to do it, it's only going to hurt you in the long run, I think. But anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got 3 minutes left, and I really want to ask you these this or that questions, because some of them are amazing. If I
Okay.
can we do about? I'm going to set a timer for like 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay.
Do you have a hard stop at 3 Eastern?
No, no.
Okay. Whatever time it is, 11, 12, I guess, for you.
Mhm.
All right. I actually have a meeting in a little bit, but I'm meeting with my editor for my book, so I'm really excited
Ooh,
about that. So I don't want to be
fancy.
too late for that meeting. All right. So I'm going to set a timer for just a couple minutes. All right. First up, would you rather live in a tree house or a cave house?
A tree house, because I'm a bird watcher, and I think there'd probably be some birds in my house.
All right. Would you rather go on a cruise with your let's say you work for yourself, so you don't have a boss. Would you rather go on a cruise with your previous boss, or never go on vacation again?
What the heck are these questions, man? That's wrong. No, my previous boss, fine. No, yeah, sure. I'll go with the one on the boss. I'll just try to avoid the boss. How about that?
Okay. Yeah, I didn't specify you could do that. All right. Would you rather be able to fight a kangaroo or race a cheetah?
Uh, Race a cheetah for sure. That would be cool.
That would
Yeah.
be a lot of fun. All right. Let's see. All right. Would you rather design only with Comic Sans or papyrus forever?
Ooh, probably Comic Sans. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I
No, I
couldn't
mean, both
design.
of those can, be versatile, but at a certain point, like, they're sort of like ironic, like, for the purpose of being ironic and kind of fun. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Being a researcher in the past, would you rather work on a project with absolutely zero user feedback, or with feedback from every user, but every user has a different opinion?
I do every user with a different opinion, because researchers can try usually make some good sense of the things that don't seem to make sense. So.
All right. I like it. All right. Would you, let's see. All right. Here's a good one. All right. Would you want to design an app that only operates underwater or in zero gravity? That's it.
Um,
Just one of the.
Probably underwater, because there's more people who would use underwater apps than zero gravity currently.
All right. Let's see. All right. Okay. Let's see. I got a whole list here. I'm trying to find this is the last one, so I got to make a count. All
Okay.
right. Okay, this is a good one. All right. Would you rather only be able to conduct user research through interpretive dance or through haiku poems?
Yeah, interpretive dance would be interesting.
All right. Now
Yeah.
that's you having to do your interpretive dance to get them to answer a question. That's what that means.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. I'll give
I
it a
love it.
shot.
All right, that's it. All right, so we're done. That is it. I think that's a great way to close this out. Amy,
Fun.
thank you so much for coming on. This was
Yeah.
fantastic. Before we
Thank
get out of
you.
here, tell everybody where they can find you and give yourself a plug.
Yeah, sure. My website is amysantee.com. You can learn more about my coaching services. You can find lots of free resources on, a lot of the topics we discussed today around job search strategy, professional development, professional identity, those sorts of things. I have a podcast, What is Wrong with Hiring.com. You can go there and check out episodes or find it on any podcast app. I co-host that with the Laura Klein. Although lately I've just been soloing it, so that's cool too.
Yeah, whatever works.
And yeah, I have a Gumroad shop with a few goodies in there regarding job search strategies, some tools and resources. And yeah, I think that's it. Find me on LinkedIn too. I hang out there quite a bit as well.
Right on. Follow Amy, and I guess I normally at this time say check out the links in the show notes, but we don't have show notes. So if you want to check out all that stuff, check out the show notes for the episode with Amy because all that stuff was in there. But that's it for us today. I hope we helped to get some of your questions answered. And if we didn't get to your questions today, you can always hit us up, both of us on LinkedIn. But I hope this was helpful for all y'all. Let us know what you think on LinkedIn. Shoot us an email or shoot me an email at hello@beyonduxdesign.com. I'd love to hear from you. Remember, if you want to help keep the show independent and ad-free, check out all those Patreon sponsorship packages at beyonduxdesign.com/support. You can join Chris, Siraquan, Stacy, Radu, Megan, Andrew, John, Mark, and Kevin by supporting the show for as little as $3 a month. You can get the book, use the code LISTENER to get 10% off at beyonduxdesign.com/book. And if you want to transform your career from fuzzy to focus, make sure to grab UX Playbook's Fast Track Bundle. Head on over to beyonduxdesign.com/playbook and use the promo code BEYOND for nearly $25 off all these examples, videos, tips, all that handcrafted by my buddy Chris Wynn. So I hope you keep coming back for more great UX tips from Beyond UX Design. And until next time, remember, you're more than a designer because there's more to UX and design. We'll see you around. Take care, y'all. Amy, that's it. We're done.
Bye.
All right, see ya. How do I get the video back up? Where do I go for the video? Here it is. All right, we're done. Bye, y'all.